Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your brand new source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
Okay, I'm still my voice is still recovering from the game several days later. So I was there in person with Tommy's big brother Alex and his cousin John, and I basically lost my voice by halftime.
You were doing the good work out there. You were losing your voice for the right cause. And yes, we are a couple days later. We are recording this on Saturday night after the Thursday night Packers loss. 27-17 loss to the Titans on Thursday Night Football in prime time. Tough loss. We'll get into it here. We're breaking it down. We had a bit of technical difficulties on Friday night trying to record this post-game pod, but we still wanted to get out to you this weekend. So recording it here, so come listen. And if you enjoy what you hear, maybe come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have...
As long as it's still a thing.
As long as Twitter is around, we will be around on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. Like I said, we tweet out when we have new episodes, tweet out articles that we find interesting, Packers news, Packers notes, Packers injury reports, stuff of that nature. So come give us a follow. We'd really appreciate it. And then on YouTube, we are at FatherSonPackers Podcast. If you want to come give us a subscription there, it would really help our numbers. But anyway, Dad, should we get into it? It's a tough loss, sending the Packers to 4-7 on the year. With 6 games to play, it's looking a little not so great. What was your gut check for this game?
Yeah, so been talking about whether it's time to stick a fork in the Packers season or not, and I think the fork is stuck in, and now it's a matter of when you take it out, is it going to look like it's completely done, or you need to leave it in there, or in this case, one more week?
Yeah, I mean, they are right on the precipice. I mean, I think they would have to win the next 6 in a row to make the playoffs, and they would still need some help. 10-7 is not guaranteed right now, especially with how bad the NFC South is, and one of those wildcard teams being better than you would expect them to be.
And I think I've heard a couple places, and I don't remember where it starts from, that the Packers' chance of the playoffs basically like 5%.
I think it's somewhere between 3 and 5% is what I saw as well.
It's lower than the Carolina Panthers because, well, they
NFC
are in
South.
the NFC South.
Yeah. There's very few teams in the NFC with a lower percentage chance to make the playoffs. My gut check to this game was, I'm not surprised that they lost. I'm a little surprised how they lost, that it was so much Ryan Tannehill carving them up with no receivers.
We were expecting we might get run over by Derrick Henry, and instead Ryan Tannehill had by far the best game of the season. Maybe his best game in 2 years?
I'm going to push back on that. We've talked about this before. Ryan Tannehill took
did he have a year? But did he have a game as good as this game passing last year?
I would have to look at the statistics, but off the top of my head, I was fairly impressed with, he was okay in their game against the Niners. I think a lot of it was A.J. Brown making crazy catches last year. I remember that game distinctly because I was watching it live with a few buddies. But it definitely is in the conversation for one of his statistically best performances in the past 2 or 3 years, I would say. I was a little surprised how they lost. Felt bad that they lost, but I wasn't totally surprised, like I said. I think the Cowboys win was what it was. Felt nice to get a win. Felt nice to get a win against the Cowboys, but at the end of the day, this is still a pretty flawed football team, which I think we deep down kind of knew. There's a lot of problems that need to be solved in the offseason. There's a lot of problems that I think need to be solved in the offseason, and there are no obvious answers, which I think is something that we should tackle. We're going to talk about this during the bye week, I think, about possible plans for Packers next year. And we'll still be giving you episodes over the offseason, of course. But I think it's definitely about as close as you can get to a dead season until it actually is one. And I think it's almost time to start looking to the draft and look into off-season plans and how they're going to do some of these cap gymnastics.
What's going to happen with the roster? And,
what's going to happen at quarterback? Are they going to give Jordan Love his 5th-year option, et cetera, et cetera? But we're not entirely here to talk about all of that today. No. We're here to break down this Titans game, and there will be due time to do an autopsy of this past season. And we talked a little bit
kind of about the season in general, what last week's game against the Cowboys meant, and it apparently was not. It did not mean a full turnaround.
No.
Yeah, and I was like, well, maybe, and we talked about this a little bit. We'll just look back at that as like, oh, it's a fun game to rewatch from the season, like the Packers-Bears game, the Mani, or it's Randall Cobb again, game from 2018. I'll rewatch that game now just for kicks.
I mean, yeah, it's always fun to beat the Cowboys. And I was saying after this game, as my copium was like, wow, well, at least the Cowboys really suck. I mean, that was kind of my feeling. It was like, man, we look like impotent against these Titans for like large swaths of this game.
And we'll talk about why and how much of that was
but we'll get into the meat and potatoes
bad players
of this game plan. But let's start with the injury update. Unfortunately, there were a few injuries sustained for the Packers. Hopefully nothing major, but we don't entirely know and have a report, and we probably won't for a little while. But TJ Slayton left with an ankle injury. I'm not sure if he came back. I was unclear on that.
Yeah, I was looking for him at one point, and it was a little hard to see from where I was sitting, and then my rewatch, I forgot to like really pay attention to whether he came back in. I thought he might have, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's interesting because I didn't really see him come back in, but I also didn't see the Packers tweet about him, about like an injury update.
Oh.
Whereas in the case of Quay Walker, they did tweet out that he would be essentially out the rest of the game. He left late with a shoulder injury, and the Packers tweeted out that he was not going to come up. On that same play, Darnell Savage went down and had to leave the field, although I think he did come back.
Did he? I know.
Oh, maybe
he left under. So he
left under his own power. They both left under. All three of them left under their own power.
Yeah, though Savage was able to walk off the field without getting attended to by trainers on the field. While Quay was getting attended to by the trainers, I could see it that Savage was walking off the field.
Yeah, and they reported it as a shoulder injury for Quay. Could be a lot of mechanisms in that area. We're just going to have to keep an eye on the injury report. But those were the three for the Packers. Definitely something to keep an eye on, but we're not going to get a report on that until, probably not till Wednesday of next week. So some time until then.
Yeah, Packers don't give you any injury updates until they have to, essentially.
And even when they do have to, they're very nebulous and very vague.
Yes. I would think about that this season. Somebody is has had the prize for that this year, one of the players. I can't remember who it's been, where it's like, what's wrong with them? Yeah, for the Packers. What's wrong with them? I don't even know. I can't remember who it was, but it's been somebody for a couple of weeks. Like, they say they're hurt. I don't know what the injury is, but
yeah, I'm not entirely sure either. But that's the injury report. Do you want to get into kind of the full meat and potatoes game breakdown?
Sure. Let's start getting into the game breakdown. We can start with what we wanted to see.
Let's start with the offense.
And start with the offense. I had a couple things I wanted to see, but only one on the offense, and I think you didn't have any on the offense. And so one thing.
And for our listeners, these are some of the stuff we went over in our pregame. Usually we have a segment each week during our pregame for the game where we're like, this is what we want to see from the Packers, either from an individual player or strategy-wise, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't particularly have anything for the offense, but you did.
Right. So I was hoping to see the Packers take some more deep shots because we knew that the Titans' run defense was stout. And I thought maybe if they could get some deep shots, they could loosen it up a little bit.
And they especially deep shots with what we didn't actually know when we did our pregame because he had been listed as limited. But Amani Hooker didn't end up playing this game, one of their starting safeties. Was something that it seemed that he was progressing throughout the week in their estimated practice schedule. And then all of a sudden, time before the game, they declared him as out. So another kind of opportunity to take more deep shots without one of their starting safeties in.
Yeah, so they took a couple that were sort of intermediate downfield. Cobb got a couple nice catches with some but the real deep shot was they had the one in the middle to Watson where he just got run into by the defender. I was like, I'm screaming at the game. It's like, how can you let him just run into him and not throw a flag at all?
Screaming with what little voice you had left at that point.
By that time, yeah. It was, so screaming might be a little bit of a exaggeration, I must
admit. It's the thought that counts.
Mental screaming.
I know exactly the play you're talking about. I've seen stills from it, and obviously, stills don't really tell the whole story, but man, is he getting his whole arm yanked in that still.
And I could even see that part of the play because they were running away from us on that play. So we were on the far side. I could just see him collide with Watson. And then afterwards, you see the shot from the other side that not only is he just running into him, but he's actually grabbing his arm and pulling on it. But then they also had the play to, you might call it a deep shot, that Lazard caught under tight coverage on the right sideline.
Yep.
Was a nice play.
I mean,
so they took
what was it? That play was like, God, I hate when they do that. I hate when they just
the only
throw
time it ever
contested...
works is when it's this miracle catch from Lazard.
The amount of, I hate to say it, but the amount of luck that is required for those plays to work, it is literally a prayer ball to the sideline, 1v1, and they're running this on 3rd and 3 sometimes. I'm just like, what are we doing here?
And
what
it's
is
also
the point?
Into extremely tight coverage.
Yes, but we're already kind of getting ticked off at the offense. But we wanted to start with the positives and then move to the negatives on the offense. And you mentioned Randall Cobb. Let's start with the positives. I thought Cobb looked great in his return. He had 6 catches for 73 yards. He had a really good, a really important fumble recovery, that is, when Aaron Jones fumbled the ball and he was the first guy there. If he wasn't there, possession switches, and it would have been an even worse game for the Packers.
Another one of those games where you feel like as soon as they do something right, they make a mistake and not only, and Cobb got 6 catches, but he caught all 6 of his targets as well.
Yes, and I would just love to see, like, I bet the Packers have like the highest number of plays that swing win probability for their opponents more than 10% in the league. Like, they got to be the team that shoots themselves in the foot the most in the league. But yeah, I thought Cobb was really good. He also took over punt returner duties for a little bit, and there weren't any really problems there. I think he only actually took 1 punt return, but there were only 3 punts in the game by the Titans. We'll get into the defense and special teams later. But took a punt return, didn't fumble it. It is what it is. I thought Cobb was really nice in this game. What did you have as a positive?
He was finding open space in the field. I had additional. I also had Cobb on my list of good things for the offense.
And everyone likes to clown Aaron Rodgers and be like, oh, he just brought his buddy in. Cobb has been, I think, maybe their most consistent offensive player, like when he's healthy.
He's been very effective at getting like 3rd down conversions and being efficient with his targets. And
being efficient with his snaps. I mean, he doesn't actually play all that many snaps in the game. He only usually plays about half the offensive snaps.
Yeah, so he's actually been the more reliable players.
Definitely when he's healthy,
when he can play.
And that is the issue.
Which is one of the things as you were worried about before the season, that they had too many players who were
we're getting into the negatives again, Dad. We're getting into the negatives. Sorry. More positives.
It's hard to avoid.
It is.
But I also felt like Bakhtiari, I think, is continuing to look good.
Yep.
And the line only gave up the offensive line overall only gave up 1 sack. The second game in a row where the preferred starters played every snap.
The tackles have been good this year. I would say Bakhtiari and Nyman have been good this year.
Yeah, Nyman gave up the 1 holding. It was kind of unfortunate because I feel like he was already like 4 or 5 yards downfield, I think, when the holding occurred. It's like we could have had an okay gain even if your guy makes the tackle at that point. This isn't one of the ones like a couple weeks ago where he is just stone cold beat. And the guy is going to murder Rodgers in the back if he doesn't just grab him and take him down.
Oh, those are fine holds. I'm totally fine with those holds.
That's actually what they're supposed to do.
Yes. But yeah, hold on a run when the guy's already kind of through the hole.
Through the hole 5 yards downfield, yeah, that would hurt. And then,
but in terms of positives, I was going to say Watson too.
Watson had 2 more TDs. He's leading all rookies in touchdowns.
In touchdown receptions, yes.
Touchdown receptions. Yes.
But it's crazy that 2 weeks ago he had 1 touchdown rush, but he had no receiving touchdowns 2 weeks ago, and 2 games later, 5 days later, he has 5 touchdowns. I mean, it's kind of incredible. Obviously, that pace is not realistic to keep up. I
saw a tweet today or yesterday that he's the first rookie with 5 touchdowns in a 5-day period.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, what's it called? He had 4 catches for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns this game. And I think the real encouraging thing, about him as a building block moving forward, assuming health is okay and he's not as injury prone as he's been this year. I mean, it was the way he scored the first touchdown for me. The fact that it was a contested catch, the fact that it wasn't just all predicated on speed. That was the quick snap, 12 men on the field. I at the end of the first quarter from Rodgers. The fact that he knew what to do, the fact that he caught a contested ball, and then the fact that he had a nice little out route for a first down later. He had a really important first down. Well, would have been important if they had maybe kept the drive alive later, but it was to keep the drive alive, which was very nice. I thought he had a really good game. Obviously, the touchdown rate is not sustainable. At one point, he had 6 catches in a row.
Keep averaging 2.5 touchdowns a game?
At one point, he had 5 touchdowns over 6 catches, from one game to the next, which is absurd.
But the second touchdown was good too, where it was kind of similar to one of last week's. I guess the last one of last week's, where he's cutting from right to left through the defense, and in some ways outrunning the coverage.
He's too fast. He's too fast.
Even running horizontally. Still, the speed is paying off.
It's super evident on the field how fast he is. And I think you can be really encouraged by the pairing of him and Dobbs going forward into next year. I think that's something really solid you can build off of. And I mean, Touré's shown some stuff as well. I would like to see more Touré, but we'll talk about that.
I would too.
LaFleur did say that Touré definitely deserves some more snaps.
How many times
has he said that a player? It's your decision.
LaFleur have to say, "Oh, that guy deserves more snaps." Okay, yeah, and who's in charge of that?
It's something.
Oh
right?
yeah, we should have given that guy more snaps.
I will say though, he's usually pretty good at implementing changes that. I feel like under McCarthy there were changes that were evident that were just not being made, whereas now that's the changes are evident, and they're being made a little late, Savage to the slot, for instance.
It might take a little while,
but they're being made. Like Savage to the slot, that change was made. I'm almost positive that came down from LaFleur, and things of that nature. Can we get the Devontae Wyatt? We'll get to the defense later, but my goodness. But those are the good things. I think there was a lot more that was bad. I don't mind starting if you don't want to. I mean, I got so much. I have
on
so
offense. So let's.
I mean, I'll start with the run game was putrid, and the Packers running backs carried it 18 times for 53 yards for 2.94 a carry. That's awful. I know the Titans have the best running defense in the league, but this was a whole yard per carry less than they had allowed on the season. They had been allowing 3.9, which was the second best in the league, or at least top 5 in the league. But this is a whole yard less, 2.94, 53 total yards. And I think in large part, it was because the interior O-line was awful. I mean, it was really bad. And Josh Myers was a second-round pick. Elton Jenkins is looking for an extension this offseason. John Runyon had been good before, but I know PFF grades are not the end-all, be-all. But, I mean, these grades at least kind of match the eye test for me. And here's what they are. These are the run blocking grades per PFF. Once again, grades per PFF are a little bit fluky. They're not always perfect, but they are at least another data point, and I just found this interesting. Elton with a 51.9 run blocking grade. Josh Myers with a 51.9 run blocking grade. Runyon with a 57.3 run blocking grade. So Runyon with the best with a 57.3 run blocking grade. If you look at the average grade for the season amongst interior O-line, that would be the 100th ranked interior O-lineman. And that was their highest graded interior O-lineman in this game in run blocking. I mean, it was awful. I mean, you just expect so much more, especially, I mean, I hate to say this, but they took Josh Myers one spot ahead of Creed Humphrey, who is one of the best centers in the league, I would say. And
yeah, he was a rookie.
I mean,
can I since you brought up the running, I also had it as a thing, so maybe I'll jump in with that now.
I mean, how could you not have it as a thing? It's the offense is supposed to be predicated on running the ball. You can't run the ball. And
you knew this was going to be a bit of a struggle, but what was driving me a little crazy, and I think we talked about this a little bit pregame, that their best run defense is up the middle.
Yes. And why are they trying them up the middle?
One place where they're weakest is wide. And so I had this, Packers spent too much time trying to run up the middle, where the Titans' defense was strongest, and they just got their best defender back.
And they're missing both of their starting edges from the beginning of the year. I don't understand.
And so the Packers ran 11 times up the middle at 2.8 yards a carry, and only 8 running back carries wide at 3.4 yards a carry. It wasn't great, but it's still better.
It just doesn't make much sense, does it?
No. And so I was and we talked about this, they shouldn't try running. They should try running wide more. in this game rather than up the middle, and yet they still did more runs up the middle than they did wide.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, the running game fell apart, and the Packers always struggle when they can't run the ball. Beyond that, I mean, do you want to talk more about the run game?
That was the main thing that I had. Was some of it was a strategic decision in some ways that I was having the most problem with rather than the execution, because they tried to go at the stoutest part of their defense.
Yeah, they're running inside straight at Jeffrey Simmons.
And the final play, essentially, of the game just encapsulated that moment where they 4th and 1 or 2, whatever it is, and they're trying to get the first down to keep the drive going with 2:15 left.
Yeah,
and they run
right up the middle,
into Jeffrey Simmons, and they don't get it. It's like, why? Why don't you run where
they're
the data suggests you're more likely to have success?
I don't get it. And I mean, I was pretty mad at the spot on that 4th down. Like,
that spot was total BS.
Was awful.
I rewatched the play.
It was terrible, but they had no challenges left because they blew all their timeouts like a bunch of morons. You can't challenge within 2 minutes. I get whatever. Okay,
but actually, it wasn't 2 minutes. It was 2:05.
Okay, well then still.
But they had used. I think they used their timeouts all on the Titans' possession, so it's going to save them the most number of seconds.
Yeah,
if you do it that way.
I know, but the thing is, they had already burned like timeouts earlier for no reason. Like
not in the second half.
They only had 2 timeouts on that Titans possession, I thought.
No, I thought they used all 3.
Okay, you might be right.
But that catch by Watson.
Yes, I know.
When he first catches it, he was right on the first yard line. And I don't know if they didn't see it right or if they decided that it was his own momentum bringing him back.
Even
but the
if
guys wrapped around his legs and bringing him backwards. It could have easily been a first down. They took a yard away from him.
I'm upset about it, but they weren't going to win that game. It's whatever.
Yes, I am upset by several calls in the game, but they probably would not have changed.
You can't play as poorly as they did and be like, oh, the refs, because like they played like, I'm not going to say it, but they played like, you know what,
booty.
They played like absolute cheeks, absolute buns all game long. I mean, can we talk about Rodgers? I mean, the numbers.
We have to.
The numbers weren't bad. 24 of 39 for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. But man, he was missing guys left and right. Go ahead, and then I have some specifics.
So I had Rodgers said he was off target on several throws.
The thumb is clearly an issue. I think you can't look at the game and be like, the thumb isn't an issue. The thumb is a problem.
But I had 2 things. A couple times he waited too long to get rid of the ball again, causing the intentional grounding deep in their own territory.
And the thumb is no excuse for not throwing it to open dudes. Dudes are open.
And then late in the 4th quarter, took that sack because he just had 6 or 7 seconds, and you couldn't find anybody. Throw it away, please.
That sack was that's the worst thing.
Egregious.
It was an egregious sack to take. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have specifics. I mean, like you said, he was missing guys all night. The thumb is clearly bad.
Lazard. Pick. So you've got the specifics on those, but all kinds of times we had guys open and he just missed his mark. He couldn't hit the target.
And I mean, the thumb is clearly a problem. I think he got it hit in this game as well. And I don't want to make excuses for him, but there were several plays late in the game where it's just inexplicable. I mean, you had guys running wide open. If you, as a listener, want to check these out, you got 3rd and 12 at the 9:23 mark from their own 32, drops back, steps up in the pocket to his own 25-yard line. Sammy Watkins comes wide open on a crosser over the middle at the 50-yard line, so what would be a 25-yard throw. And it's there, and it looks like the ball just absolutely dies in the air on him. I mean, he throws it, and that thing just tails off and fades like a field goal kick. And then 3rd and 3 from the plus 38, so the opponent's 38 with 5:26 to go, down 10. Really crucial part of the game. Takes a deep drop to about the 48, and then just Lazard wide open again, middle of the field, 25-yard line, would be like a 25-yard throw. Just misses him high and left, doesn't hit him. He's wide open. I mean, he's got a linebacker on him. Then 2nd and 10, 4:14 left. Tries to hit Sammy Watkins across the middle, and there's just no zip on the ball at all.
I think that's the one. was
a
like
duck.
way left of him as well, right?
No, this one was on him, and it just he got a completion. This one he completed. And
That's not. It's the other one.
the first one is the one that was way left, and it just faded.
He's coming. He's
just faded on him,
crossing in from the right, and it's just way to.
But it's not even
left.
wide. You watch the replay. The ball starts out on trajectory to him, and then just dies in the air and fades hard left. Like it dies in the air. He's got no zip. I mean, the ball, that 4-14 one left on 2nd and 10. Watkins across the middle. He hits him, I think, if I remember correctly. But the ball just takes an eon to get there, and it's so un-Rodgers like.
There were a couple that was like this soft floater I noticed during the game.
Yeah,
and then he had a couple other ones like earlier in the game when I felt like he's having trouble on the move with some of his throws. Where early on when he's scrambling right and he has to throw back across his body to hit Lazard, who's camped out open in the middle, and he basically pulls it too far left, and Lazard can't get it.
And I mean, this is only part of the problem. Like functionally, he's not getting the ball there, but even if that can be explained by the thumb, he's also just not seeing open guys. Like the 4th down, I think it was shot, he took to Lazard down the left sideline. There's 3 dudes who are open. I can't believe he decided that was the highest probability.
That was just a first down. Like, give up on this play throw. It had no chance.
And I just don't understand. I don't get it. And then beyond that, I mean, did you have any other negatives for the offense? I had one more.
Not really. I mean, I feel like Watkins is struggling again. He did get open a couple times, and Rodgers missed him or didn't hit him. But he also had times where he was thrown to Watkins, and he's like, the guy's like all over him. It's like, they got no separation.
Yeah, I think my last negative for the Packers was Lazard. I mean, he had several drops, and he's had drop problems all year. You just need him to be more reliable than that. And then if you want to go by PFF grades again, it's only a data point. But he has been the worst run blocker on the team this year at any position. And in fact, they have him as the 10th worst run blocker in the league, period, at any position. I think he's that bad? No. But he's certainly not good. And he's certainly not blocking as well as he has in previous years.
Right.
And
he's not living up to his reputation.
Exactly. And I think the running game is suffering because of it. I mean, it is what it is, but he just hasn't been as good as they've needed him to be this year. And maybe it was unfair to expect that much of him going into the year as a former UDFA, but I have him as a negative, at least in my book.
Yeah, he only caught 5 of 13 targets, what was the number?
I have it up. He had 11 targets and he caught 5.
5 of 11,
which is it's pretty abysmal. Did you have anything else negative for the offense, or should we move to the defense?
Let's move on to the defense.
All right, some things that we wanted to see from the defense. For me, I wanted to see them actually focus all resources towards stopping the opposing team's best player. I had felt like they had failed to do that against the Vikings in Week 1. I felt like they had failed to do that against
the Cowboys.
The Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb. They kind of let him do whatever he wanted. They still won that game, but the process didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I wanted to see them actually focus all those resources there. And they did. They limited Derrick Henry really well, just to 3.1 yards per carry. They didn't let him break off any big runs. His long carry of the day was just 9 yards. I would say that's excellent. I would say they succeeded in this, although it did seem that in any kind of important down, like any 3rd and short, they couldn't stop him. I mean, near the goal line, felt like they couldn't stop him.
It was just the one 4th down stop they got on him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and I'm watching this game. It wasn't just Henry, but it was a lot of other plays. Like, they kept making first downs by like half a yard over and over again. It was driving me absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I wanted to see from the Packers. I would say they did it, except for those. They just couldn't win the short yardage situations. And they've been, I feel like, bad at situational football, both on offense and defense all year. I mean, it is what it is. What did you want to see from the defense in this game? And
so I was looking for them to keep Ford at safety, as I didn't have much faith in Savage trying to tackle Henry in the open field. And they played him back there some. It was, I guess, a mixed bag.
Yeah. I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think they were putting a lot of resources into stopping the run game.
Yeah. Should we go into our good things for the defense first, or?
Sure.
For me,
we might as well end this episode with the bad.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, the run defense was really good, shutting down Henry. Like I said above, I thought Quay Walker had a really solid game tackling. Did get injured late though. Yeah, those are my only positives for the defense. I thought the defense was really atrocious in this game for the most part.
Yeah, so I had a couple things. I had something I don't know if it was a good or bad. They had what I noticed in the game a couple of times. They had some unusual alignments where they had like Garvin and Preston on one side and Quay as the edge rusher on the other, and they were doing some, I think, trying some different combinations of players and alignments for some of the defense. So
I mean, I don't hate it. Gotta try
I don't
something.
hate it. I felt like it needed a mention because it was something I hadn't seen much of in a while. They're trying it with different players. But I have to go back a little more depth to see if that was less or more effective than the other alignments on similar plays. But a couple of the good things I had, the defense really came to play in the fourth quarter. They got 3 straight stops in the fourth quarter to give the Packers a chance. 1 INT and 2 3-and-outs. So those 3 possessions by the Titans amounted to almost nothing and very little time off the clock. And I felt like the D-line did mostly a good job of clogging the running lanes for Henry. Like, he didn't have any space to go, especially inside, leading him to getting only 3.1 yards per carry. There's, as we mentioned before, there's a nice 4th-and-1 stop in the red zone, though in some ways that only led to the Packers getting pinned and then Tennessee scoring a little later with no time left for the Packers to do anything on a standard possession that did start at their own 1.
I sent out that I was like, I know the defense is so mad they got this 4th down stop just to move them back 25 yards. And the punt was bad. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I have a lot of negatives for the defense, and I'm ready whenever you are.
And yeah, then just a couple individual plays. There's a really nice job by Barnes to come up and stop Tannehill short of the sticks there that forced a punt in the third quarter, and the pick by Douglas, of course, where he basically read the play and went to the spot where the ball was going to be going through in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, are you ready for my...
We're ready for some bad. You want to go bad first?
My enumeration of bad
I see you have a long list.
I do, and I think it could have been longer, but... Oh, man, where to start? Let's start with third down defense. So much soft zone, so much of it, and so much passivity on defense on third down. In the first half alone, the Titans converted a 3rd and 7. Then they turned a 3rd and 10 into a 4th and 1, which they converted. So easy 9 yards on third down, which made it very easy on 4th down. Then they converted a 3rd and 1. Then they converted a 3rd and 1. Then they converted a 3rd and 2. Then they turned a 3rd and 10 into a 4th and 1, but they did not convert. So I guess solid, but you should never have let them get to a 4th and 1 in the first place, playing such soft zone.
You give that 9 yards there. You basically say, "Oh, now you should go for it on 4th."
You should go for it, yeah, exactly.
Twice they did that,
and then they gave up a 3rd and 7 and a 3rd and 3. I mean, the Titans ended up going 7 of 13 on third down for the game, but they started 7 of 10 until pretty much the dregs of the game. I mean, you let them go 7 of 10 on third down, and if you want to include the 4th down conversion, essentially 8 of 10 on drives or 8 of 10 on opportunities to continue drives. I mean, it is what it is, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple of similar things about the third down where just not enough pressure on critical passing downs, long yardage.
But the thing is, there's excuses. There are reasons the D-line, I have this written down. The third down defense was awful. And I mean, the pass defense was bad. And the D-line was bad and couldn't get any pressure. But without Gary, it's hard to expect much. I will say, though, if you're listing most disappointing players on the season, and I hate to say this because I like all of the individual Packers as players, but if we're being real for most disappointing players, is Kenny Clark second? Is he third?
He is
he fourth?
Down the last 5 weeks. I think he had a good first 3 weeks of the season, and he has not done that much lately.
I mean,
but the other thing he's put on is the secondary.
Well, here's the thing with Kenny though.
Extraordinarily.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the secondary. The secondary. If I can talk about Kenny for a second, though, You're playing against Aaron Brewer, their backup center, and you're getting outplayed. Aaron Brewer, the Titans on their website list this guy at 274 pounds. And you're getting beaten down routinely. And not just on double teams. One-on-ones. I don't think I heard Kenny Clark's name once in this entire game, and you're playing against a 274-pound backup center who, according to Justice Mosqueda, in college, they tried to play him at long snapper. Like, how?
You know, one thing that's kind of interesting, I was thinking about this lately, that I think Kenny's run defense has been down the last 2 years. I think it was down last year as well. He dropped weight when Barry came in. That that Pettin had this idea that everybody should be like at their max weight, and I think Barry's had people playing. It's a scheme to have people play at a lower weight, and maybe that weight drop has not been so good for Kenny's game.
Yeah, and I mean, the third down defense was awful, but the defense overall was just terrible, especially the pass defense. I mean, the Titans had 2 different 60-plus yard touchdown drives in the second half where they didn't even face a single third down. 2 separate 60-plus yard touchdown drives that didn't even contain a third down because you couldn't stop them on any down. I mean, the D-line was terrible, but let's talk about the secondary. I mean, the secondary, I know Stokes is out, but my goodness, they seemed simultaneously undisciplined and disinterested in playing football. I mean, I have specific instances.
Do you have examples?
Jair not going for the...
Yeah, they have examples.
Jair not going for the tackle at the 3-yard line on Derrick Henry's touchdown run. Like, sure, you're probably not going to stop him, but you're definitely not going to stop him if you don't try. Savage absolutely blowing a coverage on 2nd and 7 at 7:36 in the third, if you want to check it out. Titans gained 31 yards because he bites up on, and they double a guy in the flat, and the guy's, Okonkwo, I think it is running wide open down the left sideline.
Also, that first big play on the first possession, Savage is coming up to and maybe that was the design, but he comes up to the line on it's like 3rd and 7, and they get a 50-yard play or whatever it was to Treylon Burks.
He's been really bad this year. I mean, second
there's no safety help at all on that play for Nixon.
And like I think this is the most egregious one to me. 2nd and 7, a minute 37 in the third quarter. Please go watch it if you don't remember it. Rasul Douglas displayed, I think, some of the worst effort like I've seen it from the Packers defense this year. I mean, he let Robert Woods not only run by him, not only did he blow the coverage on Robert Woods, he let him just run by him after blowing the coverage and left Chris Barnes to chase him down from behind. And then after the play, he's arguing with Savage about whose coverage it is. How are we having arguments about whose coverage is whose in week 11? Like,
yeah, in watching this game, you felt like we had gone back to the Vikings game.
Yeah,
where people are. I think
what is going on?
Tannehill only had to complete like 1 or 2 passes to covered receivers. They're like wide open.
It's like, and there's all of these blown coverages, lack of effort. I mean, it's easy for me to say from this side of the mic, but I think it's kind of evident in a lot of spaces. And I mean, just some of the worst tackling form I've seen from the secondary all year in this game. I mean, they're just throwing shoulders. Even Amos isn't wrapping up, and he's one of their better tacklers. Like,
one thing I watched was like, how little do they believe in the defensive plan?
Right?
I mean, do they just think like?
I think they're out. I think they've totally checked out on. I think they're not listening to the Barry messaging at all. Like, I think they're totally out on the coaching, which is why they need to make a change. But at the same time, you're professionals. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think the secondary is a lot like the D line. You're missing your best pass rusher. Like, I think Kenny could have played better. I thought Preston was okay. I thought Enningbauer was okay. I think Kenny was.
They each got a couple pressures, and Preston had like 1.5 sacks. So. But
I actually thought Dean was actually okay in this game, and Reed was okay. But what on earth does Wyatt have to do to get a snap? Like, my goodness! Like, what does he have to do? You picked him in the first round.
Leave bear traps for all the rest of the defensive linemen.
I mean, it seems like short of like catastrophe along the D line in terms of a health situation, he's just never going to see more than like 10 snaps a game. Like, I don't know why you picked him if you don't think he can play. Like, did did he show up and everyone was like, "Oh no, we made a mistake. Like he can't play." But but when you watch him in limited snaps, he's not that bad.
He's been making plays in limited snaps. I don't know why they don't try to ride him and see what he can produce with more playtime. Some people, are gamers. The lights come on and they do better, and other people shrink.
I don't know. I would say the D line was a problem, but I was so much more disappointed with the secondary.
Oh yeah, and we had higher hopes for the secondary.
I know Stokes was out, but you still got three.
I just meant in general. I meant for the season.
Yeah. No, I know it's bad. It's bad.
But I have some more stuff to pile on here if you want.
Yeah, why not?
Because so first, like giving up 330 yards passing on 12.3 yards per attempt to Tannehill. So we talked about how much better he was.
It was 330 yards, and he only had 5 incompletions.
He's only averaging 210 yards a game passing. And he had 333
he only
this
had
game.
3 games over 200 yards passing out of 7 starts on the season.
And he was averaging 8.1 yards per attempt, and we gave up 12.3.
He only had 5 incompletions.
We gave up 50% more yards per attempt than he had been averaging.
Man, it's even worse when you look at it.
Yeah, and then they also failed to play complementary football. With TDs given up right after Green Bay scores in the second half, and it wasn't until the fourth quarter that they finally started making some positive impact on the game. Breakdowns, as we said, in the secondary back with receivers running just open through the field. Woods, Burks, and Hooper.
I was cackling when Burks went for 50 yards with 2 minutes left on first down. When he beat Jair down the field, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Can you put more of an exclamation mark on it for us, please?
Garbage play. I almost feel like those yards barely count.
What you mean?
But at least, you know what? Burks found a team he get his rookie breakout game against.
Yeah, congratulations, I guess. I picked him up in fantasy, but whatever. I don't know.
And I dropped him in fantasy. And then the other thing they did,
wasn't that just like the pièce de résistance of that
Chef's
game?
Kiss. If you're a Titans fan,
their rookie receiver who had been underperforming burns your number one $20 million a year corner down the field for 50 yards on first down when they're up 10, 2 minutes left in the game. You can't script it better. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And this is what the last kind of thing I want to mention. They gave way too many explosive plays.
Yeah,
a 43-yarder to Burks in the first possession. In the second half, a 31-yarder to Okonkwo. A 42-yarder, that was the pass. We said Henry's longest run was only 9, but he had a 42-yard reception.
That's true.
A 32-yarder to Woods, and a 51-yarder to Burks.
You know what that Derrick Henry screen reminded me of? Do you remember that Alvin Kamara?
I was going to say,
do you remember that Alvin Kamara 2020 screen where he beat every single player on the field?
You mean the one that had 75 missed tackles in a single play?
Yes, and Tyler Lancaster is sprinting downfield to catch him. He made
the best effort by the defense on that play.
I was like, oh my God, it's deja vu. All you can do is, I guess, laugh and plan for next year. It is what it is. Did you have any other negatives for the defense, or should we move to the we-fence?
Some of it we already talked about in terms of their third down conversions that they gave up. And a lot of them were long. 3rd and 7, converted. 3rd and 9, converted.
Yeah, we burned
3rd and 10, converted. Yeah. 37, converted. And that was...
the Titans started 7 of 10, like we said. They started 7 of 10 on 3rd down. That can't happen if you're going to win a football game. What are we doing here?
But yeah, let's get onto to we fence.
What was it? Andy Herman tweeted, I thought this was funny. He was like, so you mean changing the name from special teams to we fence didn't fix it? I'm astounded. Here's the thing. Not only are they
who we thought they were.
They are who we... Yes, very good. They are who we thought they were. But not only are they... we don't know the exact numbers, but the general reports are they're paying Bisaccia as the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league, or at least one of them. They are allocating specific spots on the roster to special teams with Levitt
It's
and
like
Nixon,
every week they keep
and
adding
Ford,
another special team specialist.
and Westbrook, and like they have all these special team specialists, and the special teams is still terrible. Like
Another blocked kick on either the snap and or the hold were shaky on the extra point.
okay,
Another block.
Here's my thing on long snappers. How are there less than 30 guys in the world who can do this? I don't understand. 30 people in the world, there's less than that can do this one job. It's astounding to me. And I'm not even, like, this is not meant to shade at long snappers, but there's got to be more than 20 guys in the world that can do this. Like, come on, guys.
Yep. But I would say we had a better return game today from Nixon, though he gave me a heart attack picking up the bouncing ball. But that also, I think, gave maybe the longest return of the year on a punt.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
And, got into Titans territory, which we then immediately squandered.
But here's the thing. The kickoffs.
Yeah, short kickoffs were killing us this game.
Here's what I got. After kickoffs, so these are just kickoffs. So the Tennessee Titans started at, so two good ones because of penalties. The Tennessee Titans started at the 17-yard line because of a penalty on the Titans, and the 9-yard line because of a penalty on the Titans. On the other two, they started at the 33 and the 37, and the one at the 17, they actually returned it to the 37. So they're starting at almost the 35-yard line every single time you kick it off, and they're kicking it to the 10.
Forget like touchback or at the goal line. The kickoffs were getting to the 10-yard line.
I mean, F it. Kick it out of bounds. Like, give it to them at the 45. At least they might not return it for a touchdown. I'm sick. I mean, they used a roster spot for Ramiz Ahmed last week because Mason Crosby couldn't kick it far enough.
And they
probably should have done it this week.
They should have. They absolutely should have. And they should have known.
I'm losing my mind.
In this cold weather game where are we sure? Or we really think that Crosby's back is better? Why didn't they do it again this week?
I don't know.
Who do we have active this week?
Yeah, right.
That made an ounce of difference at the end of the roster instead of having Ahmed.
Here's how bad it is. Here's how bad it is. We're using two spots at kicker on special teams, and the special teams is still bad. We're using two spots.
We need more kickers. We need 7 kickers on the active roster.
Here's the thing, though. Ahmed wasn't kicking it to the end zone either.
Yeah,
like he's supposed to have a big leg. He's kicking it to like the 4 or the 2.
It wasn't the 10.
That's true. I mean, but the thing is,
it's an extra 8 yards.
I love Mason Crosby for what he's done for the Packers. All-time Packers leading scorer. Love Mason Crosby, the Silver Fox. He's kicking it to the 10 with no hang time either. Like, that thing is a beam straight to the returner at the 10-yard line on the numbers. It's bad. It's really bad. You got anything else you want to rant about, or should we wrap this
Let's
baby
see.
up?
Do I have anything more I wanted to rant about? Kind of went on about the secondary breakdowns, the lack of complimentary football, making Tannehill look like a superstar, explosive plays, 22 kicks.
22 of 27 for 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick.
Yep.
It's a great line.
It's a great line.
It's a great line.
The best thing about this game that the Packers did was slowing down Henry.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Watson looked good at least.
Watson looked good again. Watson's going to be, I think, it's nothing
Knock
about
on
the future. Watson's looking like a player.
Knock on wood. Should we go to player of the game?
Thoughts?
I think
yeah.
mine was Watson for player of the game, or Cobb. I think
and
Cobb.
I had Cobb because he was first game back off the IR, and he got 6 of 6 targets for 73 yards. Led the team in receiving yardage, and caught 100% of his targets.
When he's on the field, he's very good. Like, he's very, very solid. Like, he still has football left in him if his body will like work with him on it. Yeah, that's the players of the game, and then closing.
I was trying to think about did I have a player on the defensive side?
No,
to call a player of the game.
No,
for defense, and
no.
Like the closest thing I could think
Quay,
of was
maybe.
Yeah, maybe Quay.
Maybe.
for who had the best game as a defensive player.
I mean, yeah.
And that was the only other person I can think of is compared to expectation and Egbare.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, when you're looking at the defense and you're looking at the Titans, this is the most points they've scored all year. Yeah,
yes.
It's the most points they've scored all year.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to not have a defensive player of the game in that instance. I'm just telling like it is.
Laying the truth bombs.
Yeah, I mean, let's do closing thoughts. I mean, my closing thought is the Cowboys game was what it was. Nice win, nice chance to dunk on Cowboys fans, because why not? It's not a portend for turning the season around. The Packers are a deeply flawed football team, and it's probably going to be tough the rest of this year. It's probably going to be tough next year. But we'll be here along for the ride with you. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have, as you mentioned, a nice young receiver core if Dobbs and Watson can start playing together.
I mean,
with complementary skill sets and complementary parts of the field.
I think Dobbs and Watson are a great 1-2 punch, and the only question is who's the one and who's the two.
Yeah, I think that it's possible they could turn out to be a real quality NFL number 1 and number 2 receiver.
They
if
just
we get both of them from
healthy.
the same draft is an amazing haul.
Yeah.
And I think this draft starting to round into form a little better than some of the last couple, but we'll have to see how this carries over into subsequent years.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think
first
Dobbs,
round
Watson,
picks,
and
I have a lot
Toure.
of questions about the first round picks still.
Yeah, and you could question the strategy and the positional decision making on those first couple picks. It's like, oh, what were you think? Was that really the smartest thing you could have done?
I mean,
pick those positions.
I can't.
You
I don't know if I can really talk because I was really high on Wyatt, aside from off the field concerns, obviously.
Yeah, but
I was really high on him, but he's been a nothing burger. I don't know, I don't know how else to say it.
That I did in this whole, and I did a crap ton of mock drafts. I always grabbed an edge defender, and I always grabbed a safety in every one. I thought they didn't have enough depth at safety, and they didn't have enough depth at edge. They did eventually get an edge in the 5th round with an Egbare, but they didn't get a single safety. And I think that's something that's coming back to bite them. But I do. So what we're looking at is like a 5% chance of making the playoffs, requiring them to essentially change who they've been for most of this season to do so. We got the Eagles coming up in prime time next Thanksgiving weekend on Sunday night. We'll have to see what happens there. Can they play consistent football? Are they just unable to put together enough good plays in a row because they're not good enough to make that many good plays in a row? Or do they just not have the right amount of discipline and organization to be in the right place at the right time?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be so many questions over
the off season is going to be one of big changes. I think.
I mean, there's so many.
It's hard to
cap
predict
issues.
exactly what they're gonna. Hard to predict what they're going to do in this off season.
I mean, the thing is, there's going to be so many cap issues. They got to decide on Jordan Love's
They got to decide on Jordan Love's 5th-year option. They've got to decide about what's going on with Rodgers' monster contract, and I think he's got something kicks in early in the off season about some kind of bonus. Maybe it's a player option. It might be a player option. It might be his decision. Yeah. I forget how it's constructed. You got to decide what to do with Aaron Jones because I don't think he's going to be playing for the Packers at 20-some million, which is what his cap hit is going to be next year. And he's been their most consistent offensive weapon this year. Without him, it would be a real mess. Worse than it is.
He's the whole offense, and I don't even know if they can afford to keep him. Right. I don't know.
So that's all kinds of stuff going on.
We're going to talk about all of this stuff about going forward. We're getting a little off topic for a post-game pod, but let's try and wrap it up here.
Some of this will be parts of off-season podcasts.
Exactly. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, dear listeners. I know it's tough after a loss, but we hope maybe with a couple games, a couple days at least to breathe about it, this will fire up your juices a little more again, because we did get a little heated on this pod. But anyway, thanks so much for listening again.
Let's bring on the Eagles next week.
Exactly. Yeah,
This is going to be it.
They're going to beat the Eagles, and I'm going to be annoyed.
This time, for sure.
But come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPackers. Come
How
subscribe to us.
annoyed will you be if they win the last 6 games and they don't make the playoffs because of the games they squandered earlier?
I mean, the thing is,
They're
not.
The probability of that happening is very low.
Here's the thing, like, they'd make the playoffs. I mean, if you look at the playoff teams that they have a chance of playing, I don't think they match up well on any of them, so what's the point? But anyway, you can find us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. Find us on YouTube, Father Son Packers Podcast. Come give us a subscribe. We would really appreciate it. Come give us a follow on Twitter. It is what it is. The Packers are 4-7. We're hoping for wins going forward, but there's a lot of changes coming forward on the horizon, I think, for the Packers, and we'll be here twice a week to ride along them with you. Until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.